Welcome to the first, the last, the Nerdom. Tom and Mike welcome you today. We're diving into the bizarre horror film The Pit, a 1981 classic that blends elements of psychological horror and dark fantasy. The story follows a lonely boy named Jamie who discovers a mysterious pit in the woods that nobody can see, filled with strange creatures. As he struggles with his feelings of isolation and alienation, his actions take a disturbing turn, revealing the depths of his psyche. With its unsettling themes and surreal visuals, The Pit challenges our perceptions of childhood innocence and the monsters that lurk beneath the surface. So grab your snacks and brace yourself for a journey into the eerie and unpredictable, bonkers, bizarre world of The Pit.
They don't like chocolate bars.
No, you don't. No, you don't. Nor will you get any. Hey, Tom.
Hey, Mike, what's going on?
Not much, not much. We're gonna get into it here real quick. I'm gonna do some plugging. You're gonna do some plugging, and then we're gonna get into the main event here. Without further ado, we are Mike and Tom. We make up the first, the last, the Nerdom. You can find us primarily on YouTube and
Got my Reddit going there. It's a game of seeing which subreddit will delete or ban me next. The Planet of the Apes stayed up for a little while, for a couple of days until they got around to removing it. Yeah. And I also have a X or Twitter account there. You could follow me at Miss McAllister _T, if I could even say my name. But yeah, check me out there. Give me a like. I think you've got some socials.
yeah, I got. You can find me in my publication of record where I do the little bit heavier opinionated thing, whether it's current events or whatever. But that's ApeIt.Ink. And I'm also as well on X now that we're both on X. And we're making tweets or X or something at ApeIt_Ink. And I think I said that other one wrong, but that's okay. But with that being said, I'm going to pull us back into our talking mode here, and we're trying out a little bit of a newer thing here. And for this week, let me bring up my notes here if I can find it. We're right there. Okay, there we go. Yeah. So with this. The thumbnail, the beautiful thumbnail that you did to kind of set this up a little bit. This movie, you picked a movie this week that is just off the charts, crazy, nuts, bonkers, with the double bonus feature of having the creepiest, cringiest kid you want to punch in the face. And with that, we're gonna jump into our top three lists of why this is the most bizarre movie, the bizarre things about this movie, what makes it bonkers. And coming in we're at number 3, one of the most bizarre things about The Pit.
Well, yes, it's Jamie's unhealthy obsession with his babysitter, Sandy. Great name, Sandy, which leads to him writing, "I love you" on her bathroom mirror while she showers.
Yeah.
Young stalker love.
Yeah. Yeah. And number 2, the fact that apparently everyone in Jamie's town suffers from
A complete inability to see giant gaping holes in the ground. Am I right, boys? Let's see. Multiple people just run and roll right into the monstrous pit. Yeah, it's just it's kind of crazy how most of the time it's in the daylight and they just can't even see the giant void that's just right in front of them.
Yeah, we're gonna get into some of those stills later on, maybe, and play a little bit of a clip. And that leaves us with the number one thing, the number one most offbeat thing about the movie, The Pit, 1981.
Yeah, Jamie's partner in crime is talking teddy bear named Teddy. This fuzzy little sociopath eggs Jamie on to commit murder, and he's pretty insightful too, analyzing Jamie's guilty-induced hallucinations. Dr. Phil's got nothing on this Teddy, and that, in fact, Teddy was going to be the name of this film before they changed it to The Pit.
Excellent. Yes.
Yeah,
And
and it's interesting you brought up our Twitter and X socials, because I was thinking the movie almost plays like Grok wrote it, because there's so many disparate kind of elements to the movie.
yeah, I agree. Yeah. So this kind of get into it here a little bit. Like this
Mhm.
thing, I watched this and it was so bad. Let me first off, it was so bad. I had to break it up watching it. So
Oh, really?
yeah, the first time you roll into it, from my point of view, was it was just like very dark and like just very very good. It set the tone very quickly for like a very you're introduced to Jamie, and this kid's just a diehard. You never want to hate a kid so much when you're watching him on the big screen. And I don't what made you want to delve into this bizarre fest that we have? This is bonkers with this
Well,
kid that's just, you just want to punch him in the face.
yeah, the actually I I had known about this movie. It's criminal that this movie isn't known as well as it should be. It should be, playing in all the midnight showings of all those crazy cult movies, because there's a lot to kind of sink your teeth into. The movie first came on my radar. We've talked about this quite a bit. The podcast Shockwaves that I loved listening to it a few years back before it ended up dying around the pandemic era. But
Right.
yeah, one of the guys there on the show recommended it, and the way he talked about it made me desperately want to see it. So I at the time I bought the wonderful Blu-ray of it, which has all sorts of wonderful, loving extras on it, which I'll get into a little bit later when we'll tinge my conversation of it, because there's a lot of interesting things about this movie, as you would imagine, and in the making of it.
Yeah, I did watch it, and I broke it up a little bit. I didn't break it up too much, but I did break up the first part, and then when I came back to it, I was in it started to ease up a little bit and started to get some more goofy parts that you wait. But aside from, you didn't have to wait too long for it. But yeah, like you said, you mentioned at the top there, this was a Canadian film as well, I believe. Was shot
Yep.
actually shot in Wisconsin, and
Hmm.
I don't know that I got the scenes, but you definitely feel like you have this late 70s, early 90s or early 80s vibe going on real hard with, like, that's how
Hmm.
folks look. And of course it's also kind of a peek into the life of like a times gone by, I suppose. But it doesn't really stay there too long before it gets this kid. I didn't. I guess I understood like the setup, obviously, but like his parents, like did his parents, I didn't go, what happened to, they're away or something, and like he's got a caretaker, or yeah, fill that part in for me, because I didn't catch on to that part because I was so stunned by what I saw.
Yeah, so they're leaving. I don't think it's mentioned in the actual movie
Okay.
why they're going
uh,
on the trip, but actually
right.
they're planning on, he's transferring to Seattle. So him and his wife are going to Seattle to I guess house hunt, and so they need someone to kind of look after, because you don't want this little hellion running around Seattle. So
No.
they brought in a babysitter, a caretaker, to watch him for, I would assume, a week, maybe longer. I don't know. The time is sort of ephemeral in this movie. There's actually, because the movie starts with a jump cut from further into the movie, and then it backtracks, and then it kind of goes back and forth. It loves that segment of the movie there, where during one of his kills,
Hmm.
for some reason they keep going back to that set piece. So evidently that was important. In fact, yeah, the whole movie. kind of changes in tone from scene to scene. And
It
one of the
does.
things I love about this movie is that the composer, the music guy, he got the movie. He understood the movie because it kind of cues you into how you should take a scene where things are a little. He gets a little bit more wacky and funny. The music becomes more playful, and then when he's being the creepy Jamie that he is, it gets into kind of the creepy music.
I
I also heard that the composer, he actually wanted a more full Hollywood sounding soundtrack, so he actually used part of his pay to hire more musicians, so there'd be a fuller orchestra sound to it.
I now that you say that, I do recall seeing that the sometimes movies telegraph changes in atmosphere and mood by the music and what version you're getting. I believe they did that in Split very well. Just kind of
Hmm.
as a more modern day example of that. But yeah, he comes across as this troubled kiddo, and you are wanting to have like sympathy for him, but they destroy that
Hmm.
right away because he just is presented on this platter as this just pathetic lonely kid that is just kind of obviously saw the backhand of life for as far as
Hmm.
for whatever
Hmm.
reason his home environment his whatever he just
Well,
everybody loves to dump on this kid and it comes to classic new kid in town
hmm
kind of vibe I suppose
yeah,
that
although
adds
he's
to it.
probably been there for a while. But, yeah, he's one of those kids. I think everybody knew a kid like this, so maybe not as creepy. We obviously put in on our thumbnail the creepiest kid ever,
Right.
but yeah, which he does have all the hallmarks for. But everybody kind of knew that creepy kid that would say things that you would cringe towards and wonder if maybe he would grow up to be a serial killer or not. But yeah, the movie's fascinating in that you're you tend to obviously want to kind of side with your protagonist in the movie, and is he the protagonist or not? You're kind of bouncing back and forth. You go from wanting having sympathy to him to be totally revolted by him to then sympathizing with him again. And it's interesting that you're kind of ping ponging back and forth, and but you're at least I was always constantly engaged as to what is Jamie going to do next. How far is things going to go? There's that sense of because you uh, at one point, well, you become attached to his babysitter right away, and if you're kind of thinking, where did I see her from? It's probably from the episode of Seinfeld where she was one of his girlfriends.
Oh, okay, I did
His
not know that.
rotation of girlfriends on Seinfeld, because she's got that look where I've seen her somewhere before, but yeah, there's that constant fear of she thinks she kind of understands Jamie, but we really understand Jamie, so we're in constant fear of what he's going to do to the babysitter. So there's that tension there.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, there is that excuse me, I had to do that. Yeah, I thought I was wondering about that. And I was just trying to scrub through her thing. Yeah, so she is obviously a primary character in here too and she's kind of like this
Mhm.
stable figure for him as it goes and boy, it doesn't take long. This movie also doesn't spend too much time in one spot. It kind of pushes the storyline.
Mhm. Yeah.
You're getting more of a very much of a stronger push as the story goes on, as you're rapidly
Mhm.
in taking his world, the people around him, the school that is around him. You kind of get this impression that he is a little bit of maybe of a little bit of a Bart Simpson, a little bit of a ne'er do well, maybe.
Even has he's writing on the
Right.
chalkboard. Why not to bring adult books into the class anymore?
Oh yeah, that's another thing too that they touch on too, which is very kind of shocking the way they do it. They're not afraid to kind of explore this kind of thing of like putting this kid in the place of like where your sympathies lie. So just as you kind of start to get sympathy for him or build some kind of empathy around this character, it gets yanked away because of what you kind of see this kind of skeezy in a way. It does have a very yellowed tinge of innocence on it, I suppose, for the subject matter that we see. I saw the broadcast edit, so unfortunately I didn't see the full, I'm sure you saw the full thing, but so the parts that I saw were edited. I think I watched it on Tubi. But all the same, it it doesn't take long to show you that young man is obviously a 12-year-old boy. He is firmly in the grasp of adolescence, and that world on top of him changing anyway.
Yeah, and I like the acting's actually quite good, and the boy is played by Sammy Snyder. He plays Jamie, and then Jeannie Elias, I think, is the babysitter. But they do a great job, and actually, they had another person playing the babysitter, but she didn't seem to hold her own against Jamie, so they had to replace her because you really need that dynamic of that push and pull between the two characters. You can't have the babysitter weak against Sammy or Jamie, who's this force to be reckoned with. I mean, he's Sammy is Jamie, which interestingly enough, Sammy was actually a big actor in Canada at the time. He was he was in a show about Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer, and he played Tom Sawyer, a role that almost went to Michael J. Fox, who turned down the role of Tom Sawyer to go on to make Family Ties instead. So,
right on.
So yeah, we might have had Michael J. Fox as a young Jamie.
Yeah, it's so funny
if things were crossed differently.
Yeah, it is funny. Yeah, he would have been. Well, he did the acting and for what you're given and for what this movie is. This kid does play he draws you in and makes you want to feel sorry for him, or pathetic. I guess you feel pathetic for him as the movie goes on. But I was gonna say he did. He was bullied as well. So it's not like this is coming from nowhere or whatever. And it's not just him. It's the world. The world. This is like a versus the world type setup, and you can't help but feel like you can't help but see how palatably pathetic.
It's like you kind of want to feel sympathy for him because he is being bullied, and even by the little girl in the neighborhood is bullying him as well. But he also does things that doesn't ingratiate yourself to him either. You kind of see you see the flip side of why they're bullying him, because he's this gross, creepy kid. It's like, get away from me. Please get away. But yeah, so there's, like I said, we do have our lolcows now that sort of fit that bill as
Isn't it funny too how that works too? Lew Lehman is the director here, as we kind of going from one pinball one shot to another when we go through this. So yeah, so what was the before we get into the difference of the version you saw versus what I saw, there was some nudity in this, I would assume, some kind of nudity, that which also kind of played into a classic horror trope, I suppose, that is more modern, reminiscent of the 80s. I think this is very early in the 80s to do that as well. And like I said, it doesn't and like horror films, like modern, I think, well, I guess this is a classic fingerprints of a horror film. They're not afraid to take over, taboo subjects, right? So I mentioned one before, Split, which kind of delves into what identity is and but this is no part of this. Kind of had the fringe of The Hills Have Eyes a little bit, not a lot, but just a little bit of like a kind of a weird feeling that you get. And I'm talking about the modern version. I'm not talking about the older one, the remake that I think in the early 20 teens Of course, we'll have that's one of the 3 movies that I've walked out in my life. I was a new father at the time, so the subject matter that I was seeing in that movie really hit, and I was like, I don't want to see this. I'm done. But one of the rare times to be disgusted. This is also Lew's only film, I believe, in my notes. How did the?
No, he did do he did produce and he actually worked on John Huston's movie Phobia. He didn't direct it. John Huston did, but he co-wrote it, and he
did. You're right. He did one in 71. Bad notes there. Sorry. Yeah, go on.
But yeah, he was really wanting to be a director, and so he actually got fired on both of the movies that he worked on, including this one. He actually got hired because at the time Canada had their tax shelter thing where they were you'd get tax credits for making movies. So this movie is a Canadian movie, but was shot in Wisconsin in the town called Beaver's Dam, I think it is.
Beaver Dam.
Beaver's Dam. Yeah, Beaver Dam. Yeah. But Lew happened to be in the office of the Directors Guild in Canada when the call came through. The producer was calling to see if there was any directors available to direct a movie, and they said, "Hey, Lew, do you want to direct a movie?" He goes, I do. And, so yeah, it pays to be in the office. So yeah, there was no other directors around. So yeah, he got the gig. And they thought, oh, well, since he worked with John Huston, John Huston's a big guy. So, and he worked on the script as well. So yeah, he got hired on. And from all things that's been said, he's actually was a pretty nice and efficient director, according to the cast and crew that worked with him on the set. And in fact, a lot of the people in that town were so enamored by Hollywood or movie making that a lot of them actually moved to Hollywood, got the Hollywood bug, and actually moved to get into the biz. So yeah, for all I've heard, the set was actually fun to be on, and I think the challenge was that Lew had a different opinion on how the movie should go as opposed to what the producers and the writer Ian A. Stewart had in mind. They had more of a psychological drama / horror movie, where Lew, you got what you got with Lew on this movie, which was sort of a horror comedy, which wasn't a thing really in the early 80s. So yeah, a lot of people didn't know what to take with it. And actually towards the end of the movie, he got fired by the producers, and they brought Ian in and Lew had his wife on the set, so he didn't shoot any of the nude scenes. And Ian, the writer, actually got brought in to film the nude scenes, which one of the nude scenes involves Lew's daughter. So that was kind of confusing to me, but yeah. So he did the
when I read it.
So yeah, it was kind of interesting, and but no one knew how to put the movie together at the end, so they had to rehire Lew to actually put the movie together. And I think we're probably better for it because we have the unique gem that is The Pit. I mean, the movie is one of those movies that I love. It goes in all directions all at once. It does quite a few different things at times, like during Jamie's montage of killing people. There's the scene where he's rolling a poor old lady in a in a wheelchair to her doom, and then she's waving around, and it almost looks like a Monty Python skit. and she kind of looked like a Mrs. Doubtfire, maybe Robin Williams in drag there. And I don't know about you, but Jamie, in this movie, the actor that plays Jamie reminded me of a young Zachary Quinto, who plays Spock. He has that kind of angular face that kind of put me in the mind of that. And then also almost with his acting as well, sort of that kind of
matter of fact kind of
yeah,
I'm here now and I want money, or very simple plaintiff child role.
Yeah.
I can see that.
And there's this whole B movie aspect to the movie. It's a lot of people just see it as a bad movie, but I think there's a lot of care that was brought into this movie. You've got some interesting acting. It's not it's maybe not the best acting in the world, but pretty decent. And you have this kind of odd quality of having Canadian actors and American actors, so it kind of has this sort of displaced kind of feel to it, with the one of the police officers having such a strong Canadian accent.
Oh God.
But
yeah. Minnesotan or something like that is what I got. Like, that's funny, this Beaver Dam, because I grew up not very far from there, in that area. So I knew people that I'm surprised. I'm sure it's a local lore there. Around that area is where the guy who holds the Guinness World Record for eating Big Macs. He's in and around that area, but anyway, little Wisconsin lore around there. But I noticed that about the cop. Yeah, and it's so funny too. It does catch you off guard. As one of I was scrubbing through the trailer there. It does. I agree with you. I wanted to touch on one thing you said. This would not be the movie that it is, and it would not be the cult classic that it is, or the legacy that it has, for being. It has an air of quality that it probably shouldn't have, or that you would assume that it doesn't have. Yeah, that's why it kind of took me a little bit to get used to the thing. Of course, I haven't watched something like this in a long time, so that's on me, not the movie per se. But it did take. Well, once you kind of get into it, there are more humor aspects of it that are like go, and that's true.
Yeah.
All the way to the very end of the movie. I won't spoil it, but it is kind of, you kind of see things coming. You're like, is it going to go like that? And when you think it's not, it does exactly what you think.
Right.
It wasn't.
Yeah, and I do want to get into a little bit of spoilers, but we'll wait till the end. But what Lew had envisioned with this movie, because there's an aspect of this movie where is how much of it is in the mind of Jamie, because he does have a teddy bear that talks to him.
Right.
And the voice of the teddy bear is done in the voice of the actor that plays Jamie. So Jamie plays both the teddy bear and himself. So you have this idea, well, maybe it's all in his head. But there's a scene where the babysitter's in his room, kind of cleaning up. She leaves. Well, she finds a dirty magazine and then leaves. But Teddy, the creepy music comes in, and it slowly pans over to Teddy, and Teddy turns his head. So Jamie's nowhere to be found. So this tells you this isn't in his head. I mean, this is
right.
Independently, he's cognizant and he's evil. Teddy's there,
and they play with that too. They kind of they don't really quite break that fourth wall, but like when one, I'm not going to spoil it, but like when Sandy finally does come with Jamie to the pit, you really do think for a second of like, maybe we're just kind of seeing aspects that they want us to see, but and there's a little bit of a play there between them, like where she's like, sure, kid, and then you're like, well, maybe this is just like, it also is like a classic horror, like a horror movie. It does the thing where so like I like to say, like, well, I've said before, there are rules, right, that you can kind of follow, and they're kind of that does apply to this movie, but I won't get into them right now. But and we're about a half hour in, so we're probably another 5 minutes or so. We'll let it all air out. What you say, Tom, but they play with this thing of okay, he's got some kind of thing going on with this doll with this teddy bear, but then there's also this whole other aspect too with the trollops, the flesh eating,
Prologues,
the flesh eating thing. So they're kind of playing with different aspects of like kind of supernatural, kind of
Mm-hmm.
psychoticness with the whole teddy bear possession kind of thing. There's a little bit of a vibe
Yep.
there, and it plays it up very well
Mm-hmm.
for what it does.
Yeah, and I think the thing that brings it over the top and brings it to its B movie glory is that it relishes in the aspect of this being real. These troglodytes, or as you said, Jamie calls it the tralala, tralalas. They are real. Teddy is real. And in fact, I want you to rename this movie as Teddy, and there in it now is a trilogy. You've got Teddy, Ted, and Ted 2.
Okay,
I
right.
think there's a through line. I think Teddy got passed on and he became Ted.
Yeah, it's so funny that it's so funny because they, instead of focusing on, and of course it also sets up the expectation when you roll into
Mhm,
this movie and you start to see this kid and this teddy bear. It's kind of a little bit of a head fake, a little bit,
mhm, mhm,
because you're focusing on the movie title, The Pit. So I think
mhm.
that maybe if they would have changed the title, this would be maybe perceived or taken very differently, I think. So it's very, very
Yeah, and
possible
mhm,
that could have been in an
yeah,
alternative universe that
yeah,
they got the benefit of that.
yeah. And we've kind of teased it, but let's talk about what the movie, the writer envisioned, because he was very upset by this movie that it didn't get his vision across. And in fact,
Right.
the producer of the movie brought him into the movie, his office after the movie was made, and said, "I'm sorry, we made a B movie, trash B movie out of your wonderful script." So okay, so let's talk about it. This is going to contain spoilers because we're going to talk about the end. But so if you haven't seen it yet, definitely see it. You got to see it, and then come
Right.
back and watch this little bit at the end here. But the way that Ian kind of envisioned the movie is, the thing that caused him to write it was two aspects of it. He had a ventriloquist friend who was also a psychologist,
Okay.
that worked with autistic kids, and he had a ventriloquist dummy, uh, that he would talk to the autistic kids because they would talk to them a little bit better. And then yeah, and there was one kid that would only talk to the ventriloquist dummy. And he had a relationship with him, and he felt that like that ventriloquist dummy was real. So that's one aspect of what brought him to it. And the other one was this other kid that had been traumatized,
Mm.
and the way that he dealt with things was if someone was bad to him or someone around him, he would draw these things, these troglodytes, but he didn't know how to say that, so he called them troglodytes,
Right.
and he would draw them attacking and killing the person, and then that person was dead to him. He would not interact with that person anymore because his troglodytes had killed him. So that kind of instructed his idea of what Jamie was, and caused him to write this story. And so it's much more of a kind of a psychological thing. In fact,
Right.
the movie kind of plays out sort of the way he saw the movie,
Mm.
but in the end, obviously, it ends with the little girl pushing Jamie into the pit.
Right.
But there's this one scene more after that where at Jamie wakes up and he's in a mental institution, and there's his parents, there's the babysitter, and all these other people that supposedly had died, and they're talking about how mentally disturbed Jamie is. So that kind of brings it all together and makes
Mm.
it more. This movie makes sense in a sense, uh, but I almost love the movie not having that scene, not going there, because it kind of wraps
Right.
everything up into a neat little bow. We've seen movies like that before, and it would have been an interesting movie, but I don't think it would have that cult appeal to it, if it had that in it.
I agree.
This movie just kind of brings a little something extra to the table, with it being so bizarre and not giving you any of the answers, and mm, forcing you to think that these things are real.
Yeah, and this kind of I just kind of glommed onto this a little bit a little bit ago. Now that I'm thinking about it, but it does kind of loop around and coil like a snake. And the iconography of the pit, kind of gives it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
That's my personal feeling, but because you're not
Mm-hmm.
expecting this, and then when it ends, it's freeze frame, and then he's going, he's kind of like I,
Ah!
I don't know, and I didn't stick around too long to indulge in it, but it kind of seems to me like that's kind of like a message in the movie to like where evil kind of gets nipped off or something like I don't know
There's a cyclical
right
nature to this evil.
there is
Um, yeah, and in fact, there's actually, back in the day, they wrote novels, tie-in novels to movies,
Hmm.
and listened to the commentary track on the Blu-ray, and they talked to one of the guys who talks on it. Read the novelization. I would love to read it. He says it reads kind of like a Stephen King novel. Obviously, this movie plays on the demon child genre that was huge during the 70s and 80s. But yeah, in the novelization, actually, one of the police officers actually becomes one of the major characters in the novel, and they get kind of into a little bit more about the troglodytes. And the troglodytes in that pit, there's actually connecting pits, and the troglodytes would move from pit to pit.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so there was a network of troglodytes. So that makes it kind of interesting. But yeah, there's also the aspect. Geez, I forget. But yeah, the whole kills are kind of enjoyable
You
with
know,
him and the with him and the old lady and the little girl, and there's also the scene this with the boyfriend and the little girl where you see the pit and it's quite obviously there,
Right. Yeah, yeah. The characters are also the people that torment this kid are not your friend or friendly. They're very the audience is made to not like them either. But the kid
Mhm,
takes it to a little bit, and listens to the Teddy is really the steering force here, the connective tissue with the pit,
mhm.
and it starts out as kind of like a very not you can sympathize very limited for like 5 seconds, and then it's like it's about this kid being like, well, they weren't nice to me, and these are mean
Mhm.
people, and they should be, he doesn't see a problem with ushering Granny in the and of course she is
Yeah.
one of the
So-
people
mhm.
that did bully him. I mean literally this
Yeah.
kid walks down the street and everybody takes a shot at him, like everybody
Yeah,
does.
they crap on him. Even his parents aren't very loving
No,
towards him. And in
right.
fact, one of the key scenes in the movie happens early on, and this makes me think that Lew knows his stuff as far as a director. There's a scene where Jamie's in his, I don't know where it is. Is it in the basement or where he has all his kind of reptiles and in the
Oh
kind
yeah,
of the
yeah,
glass encasing.
right.
Now he's looking at his reptiles through the glass and he's observing them, right?
Yep.
And then it cuts to, it's dinner time. He goes to the dinner, and like kids do, he's holding his glass up to his eye and looking at his parents and the new babysitter.
Right.
But it's kind of key because if you think about it, he's looking at them like and you're looking through his eyes, you're seeing things his way, and he's looking at his parents like the reptiles. He's a step away.
Mm.
He's observing them like creatures, like not really humans. And then once he takes his glass away, there's an extreme close up of his parents eating, and he's not really seeing his parents. He's seeing the actions of his parents. They're not really his parents. They're just things that he's observing.
Right.
And then he gets creepy and tries to see up the babysitter's dress.
Right.
But yeah, you can see that he doesn't have what everybody else has, that basic connection with humans. He's trying to create those connections, and the things that are receptive to him are Teddy and the troglodytes or troglodytes. That's where he makes his connections, and he does make a connection with the babysitter as well. That doesn't end up very well either, because she cannot join his weird and perverted world.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the only he doesn't really connect with any of the characters beyond except for like maybe two. The babysitter, obviously, like where there's something a little bit more there, and the girl at the very end. And he is just ecstatic that people are. He really thrives on that little bit of that minutia of follow through. Aside from you get in trouble or you're creepy, you're weird. Nobody wants an explanation. And the other thing too, nobody wants an explanation from him. He tries to. He multiple times he tries to speak up for himself, for the situation. When he's asked a question, and they nip it right in the bud. They just take it and then like smash it.
Yeah, and you do get weird vibes about his parents too. You don't know a whole lot about him, but you do know that his mother still gives him baths. So, another key point is Ian had always envisioned this movie as having an 8 or 9-year-old as Jamie. And in fact, they had picked out a few handful of actors that were 8 or 9 to be Jamie and brought it to Lew when he was casting for the roles. But he went with Sammy, who was 14 and looks 14, to play the 12-year-old. And Ian points out, rightly so, is that there's sort of still a charm and an innocence of an 8 or 9-year-old, where if he's doing the things, there's a lot less creepy factor to it and more of a completely different story. It becomes kind of
innocent,
almost innocent. There's a very much of an innocence, where with the Sammy being 14 and looking 14, that he's playing a 12-year-old, but you see him as the 14-year-old that he is. And there's this whole creepy, because at 14 you are kind of starting to fill things out and you're starting to understand things, and there's a much more creepy factor to it. And I think that was intentional with Lew. I think he wanted to kind of take that up to a 10 as opposed to going the other way. Which, like I said, it would have been a totally different movie with a 8 or 9-year-old.
Yeah, I agree completely. You get that factor with him, and you want to feel sorry for him and how pathetic he is. But that's why I say kind of like if there is any innocence in this movie, it gets yellow real quick, like an old newspaper in the sun. It just yellows, and then it's not quite taken. You understand conceptually what they're going for the innocence, but you can't have that because of the age they're in. And he also talks about he's a very lonely kid. He talks about love and wanting to be, and of course when he does this, the babysitter throughout this their back and forth, like where you're learning a little bit where he is. He's a little bit more maybe less immature than his peers, maybe. So his concept of things are maybe a little bit more base maybe than not very mature, not very fleshed out. But as they do become fleshed out, you kind of see this kind of, he's got some things backwards. Which is kind of the whole point of his character, I would say.
Yeah. And I absolutely love that. I think Beaver's Dam, where it was filmed, I think they do have like a film festival for this movie every year. I love that this movie's celebrated somewhere for being what it is. But and also I think when you think of incels on the internet, I want this to be every one of them's backstory. I want this This
No,
is very.
absolutely.
There's a lot of bold choices in this movie. Bold choices.
There is, and if this had been done maybe a little bit different, a different few years before, it could have really been, like you joked about it, but it could have been, Teddy, and and the Return of Teddy, or something along those lines. I also think
Mhm.
you would have got a completely different feel from this whole thing in general had it
Right.
been,
In,
again, we kind of bounced
mhm.
this ball off the wall. It would have been not as the cult classic had it been, something a little bit different than what
Yeah.
we got.
Yeah. And I think a lot of there's a tendency with movies to round off the edges to make it palatable for bigger audiences. Obviously, you want as much money as you can get, but there's these gems like this, which is sort of Lew taking the story and maybe manhandling it into his vision of the movie,
Right.
which is, warts and all, it's something to see. I mean, I love movies like this that damn it, this is what it is. There's no excuses. It makes no excuses. It is what it is, and
Absolutely.
it makes, like I said, bold choices. And yeah, it's right in your face, and yeah, it makes you see things that you don't really want to see, but but in the end, it's you're not the same after you see this movie.
No, no, it does leave you with a certain weird kind of creepy feeling, I suppose. Like,
Mhm.
and of course,
It's got the
go ahead.
it's got that feel of a B bad movie,
Mhm.
but it's done with quality. And in fact, that pit looks amazing, even though you can see it in broad daylight, and no one would fall into it without seeing it. But but it is a quality pit. I mean, it looks good. The creatures, the trolla logs that are in there look great. One of the things is they look horrible when they get out of the pit, but that's actually they filmed that stuff first, with them running around, and they didn't like the look of them,
Right.
so they actually redid it back. They did reshoots in Canada and reshot the creatures down in the pit, and that's why those look really good. Is actually they actually went back and fixed them.
Okay.
That's a sense of quality, them doing that. And also, they were going to have little kids as the troglodytes, but they were actually passing out and throwing up, so they had to bring in some little people
That's
to
funny.
portray them.
That is
And in
funny.
fact, yeah, there's one day, and while they were filming, and a trail of kids kind of walked across, and the main actress that plays the babysitter kind of pointed out to directors, like, "Who are those?" And he goes, "Oh, those are the troglodytes."
What a
And in fact, they
bizarre,
were.
yeah, what a bizarre
Yes.
thing to be a part of.
Mhm.
Yeah, this one, it does have a certain level of quality to it that does draw you in. And of course, I kind of joke, but you just did Jamie Kid. You kind of joke
Mhm.
about, like, if you just have a face that you just want to punch.
Mhm.
Obviously, that's kind of the point of it, but it is very
Mhm.
good. I think it would have been a completely different movie for the writer, had they got their way. But it is what it is, and we got what we got, and I think it works. I think it plays into it, that weird, creepy,
Mhm.
taboo, skating across the lines of sexuality and what it means to be a kid.
Mhm.
And the babysitter, of course, has we didn't really talk about it, but she has a boyfriend, or, like, a friend, or
Mhm.
whatever. She kind of awkwardly
Yeah.
describes it, doesn't really tell him the
Yeah.
truth, doesn't really take him
Mhm.
seriously, just kind of brushes him off like it's almost like the dialogue that they did was for an 8 or 9 year old kid, between the babysitter and Jamie,
Mhm.
and Sammy. But what
Mhm.
comes across is a little bit more alienating anyway, because that's kind of so it
Yeah.
works out anyway, but for slightly different
Mhm.
reasons. Um,
Yep.
but and of course, there, like I said, there's a level of quality there. I did enjoy this. This was a little bit harder for me to get into at first, for whatever reason. But as the movie goes on, it
Mhm.
lightens up, or you lighten. I guess
Mhm.
it was me that lightened up. It's a little bit of a more fun trip. Towards the you start in one place and you kind of go. It's so ridiculous. You can't help but chuckle at a couple scenes. Or do the classic kind of like, I know this part, the
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And just a little follow up on what the actors went on to do. Sammy, who played Jamie, he actually got out of acting at 16 and went back to his first love of dancing. He became a dancer and is now a dance instructor. And Janine, who plays the Sandy, the babysitter, she actually went on to do a lot of voice acting roles and is now a voice acting instructor. So she's even done some roles in Solar Opposites.
Yeah, we've that's come up before. I was gonna say there's a few of these that came up. So yeah, it looks like she's very very busy and very long-lived actress. So that's always, I'm curious, George. I saw that when the kiddos were younger. So that's so funny. But yeah, no, there's a lot. I'm sure there's endless connective tissue there. There's a lot there. But yeah, this one, I think I don't know. I have too much more to add. But, I was going to say, how does the physical media version differ from like what I saw? Obviously, being at the broadcast edit, which is not as good for the.
I think it's the same. It's 96 minutes. It's just cleaned up and probably looks better in Blu-ray. It's not a 4K, but
the quality I
put
saw
out
was
by
just fine.
Lobert. Yeah, it's probably made off of this print anyway. So yeah, it's probably doesn't have a whole lot more to it. But yeah. It's if you like your physical media, you like the Pit, you might want to pick up the Blu-ray. I think it's still available through Kino Lorber. Kino Lorber is one of those indie publishers that digs out those gems and produces those. So yeah, if you're into those, but yeah, like Mike, he watched it on Tubi, which I'll probably be promoting on Reddit. Tubi TV subreddit likes us, doesn't mind us advertising on it. So shout out to Tubi. Tubi has some great movies on there. We'll probably be dipping back into the well of Tubi here in the future. So make sure you've got Tubi app on your TV, phone, wherever you watch movies. And if you watch it on your phone, don't tell David Lynch. He might give you the scorn of Gorn for that, but
I'd say this is a perfect appetizer for the Halloween season. This is something that will get you in the mood, or whether you throw it at the beginning of the mix or the end, whatever. But we are definitely headed into the fall season, and this was a good, wonderful film to introduce us into the spooky thriller season. And we will be covering many more as we go forward. But I think that about does it for the oops, I gotta do this thing plugging. We'll do it in reverse order here. I did want to while we do that, before we do that and we say goodbye, go check out like you mentioned, it did get a little bit of traction there. Something that was a very I always love it when you can watch an existing IP and they do justice to it. I think that's was our sentiment. So go check out what we said about that one, and of course you can see all of our wonderful stuff here. And with that, I'll hand it over to you, Tom, to kind of plug our socials.
Yep, and I've been empowered by my Boomer Juice here. And you get it at any place that sells Boomer Juices. but yeah, I'm on Reddit. I handle our Reddit. So, but yeah, like I said, Tubi does this good there. And then I'm also on Twitter, X, and as Matt Callister _T. Follow us there.
And I as well am on. We're both on X, ApeIt.Ink, as well as you can find my more heavier opinion, heavier side thing, funny pics, YouTube pics, that kind of thing. ApeIt.Ink. But with that, I think we're rolling up to the
go ahead and yeah, like and subscribe, and yeah, and if you like, tell us what you think in the comments. Do you like us covering the major blockbusters? Do you like us dipping into the 80s? Do you like us covering 80s horror, sci-fi? Do you like us going into these cult classics here? Or do you like it all? No, me and Mike probably like everything that we cover, obviously, or we wouldn't cover it. But yeah, tell us what you like us to focus on, if anything. Or do you think we're doing great? Otherwise, if you think we're just doing great and don't need to change, just give us that thumbs up.
Absolutely, yeah. I've been Mike.
And I'm Tom. Keep it creepy.
The